So today's a special day. This is the first installment of Quarter Notes. This is a new quarterly workshop series that essentially breaks down a concept every quarter into monthly lessons, broken down into 3 different layers. So that we'll kind of start at the beginning if you've never done these concepts before and work through some really advanced things. So you'll be able to work on these techniques throughout the quarter. And we're going to give a lot of different examples to other lessons here on Patreon. So if you're watching this as a recording, make sure you check the description and links below because there will be a lot of examples that utilize these different techniques and everything. So this one is all about 3-finger style. Specifically, this is with our playing hand, and it's essentially 3-finger picking, which I think is the most common type of finger style you'll see on the ukulele, especially because we only have 4 strings. So 4-finger picking is pretty nice because we have 1 finger per string, but 3-finger tends to be more preferred, I think, because it's easier to get a really good tone with these 3 fingers. So especially for more beginner players, 3-finger picking is really approachable, but it's not just for beginners. In fact, like players like Jake Shimabukuro use 3-finger picking more than the 4-finger style. So it's one that will accompany you throughout your journey. But let's go ahead and dive into how we do this technique. I'm going to bring my camera down. We're going to start with assigning our fingers to our strings and figuring out exactly where we need to put them to get the best tone possible. Even if you're a more advanced player who has 3-finger picked many times over the years, there should be a couple little nuggets in here of the approach that might be a little bit different. And so go ahead and try it as I'm working it here. We're going to start with our thumb. We're going to take our thumb and we're going to put it on our C string. Our C string is the second one from the top, our 3rd string. And I'm going to take that thumb and I'm going to put it about a 45-degree angle right where the fretboard and the sound hole meet, just like that. Now, I'm not saying you can't finger pick up or down. I'm just saying right now, just start right here, 45 degrees, right at where the fretboard and the sound hole meet. And if your ukulele looks different than mine, it's okay to just kind of guesstimate where that would be on your instrument. But with this now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to engage my other 2 fingers, which are going to be my index finger here and my middle finger here on the E string and A string, respectively. And this can be a little bit tricky, but here's the mindset. This index finger wants to be perpendicular to the string. You see how it's not slanted out this way, it's not slanted over this way, right? It's perpendicular to the string. And as it's perpendicular, you'll notice that it's offset from the thumb. You see how it's behind the thumb? This is going to give us the best opportunity for really, really good tone, having that thumb just in front and the index just behind. Now, before we even start thinking about using another finger here, let's go ahead and get comfortable with just these 2 fingers. Go ahead and try just using all open on your ukulele, play the C string with your thumb, and then play the E string with your index. Now, the way that this is struck, I'm going to super zoom in here, is kind of funny, because most people, when they learn this, they do something like this. And you hear how brittle that tone is? The trick to getting really good tone with the ukulele is having this kind of Zen mindset. See this index finger here? When I strike the E string, I'm not going to hook and pull out. What I'm instead going to do is I'm going to create a little bit of a release here on this first knuckle. And I'm going to have it give a bit as I'm applying the pressure of the fingertip to the string. Again, I'm keeping it perpendicular to the string the best I can. And that perpendicularness is not just from this standpoint, but also we want to be making sure that our nail, in this case, is flush and parallel with the string, right? The finger is perpendicular and the fingernail here is parallel. And what I do is as I apply the tension on my fingertip, I'm going to have the finger move ever so slightly. You see how that first knuckle actually bends. And instead of hooking it and pulling out like this with that knuckle staying taut, I'm instead going to apply the pressure and I'm going to come up and out with the index, drawing it behind the thumb to release for the tone. This takes a ton of practice if you haven't worked on it before, but it's what leads to that really buttery, clean, smooth sound as we play. The thumb is going to kind of do the reverse of this. It's going to use this knuckle to stay kind of tight here, and it's not going to bend this way, but rather I'm going to use the base of the thumb to strike that string, and instead of coming, up and out, it's going to go down and out. So you'll see that kind of comes in front of where the index finger is, while the index finger comes behind where the thumb is. So go ahead and try practicing this for me. Just play the open on the C string with the thumb, and then the index here on the E, and just alternate back and forth. And go and look at the position that I have here. See how the index is trying to be perpendicular, the thumb is a 45-degree angle, the thumb is in front, the index behind, The thumb pulls in front of the index, and the index pulls behind the thumb. Now, to work on the next finger here, it's not 2-finger picking, it's 3-finger style, right? So we're going to use that middle finger, and we're going to place it on our A string. Same mindset though. We're going to be perpendicular to the string with that finger, and we're going to use the tip of the finger and apply that pressure so that that first knuckle bends a bit. Now, what can help is when you're practicing this, it's okay at first to place the thumb on the C string, place the index on the E, place this middle on the A to get that sort of comfortable feel, and then try releasing one of the strings. In this case, try using that middle finger, apply the tension, and then pull up and out as you strike it. Right now, you see I'm holding these 2 fingers on the strings. I'm not always going to do that, but it's a really good method to get comfortable getting a feel for how that finger should release. And I can practice this with my index on that E string and my thumb on the C string. And you see how I'm just kind of resting the fingers on the strings as I do this. Now the problem with this is it stops the strings from ringing. So it's not something we want to do forever. But initially, when we're first getting comfortable with these motions, it can be a really helpful sort of anchor to keep our hand more stationed. And speaking of anchors, the pinky down here, one of the most asked questions I get is it okay to place the pinky on the ukulele and anchor it? And the answer is absolutely, as long as it doesn't make your technique poor. And what I mean by that is for some people, they get their technique really comfortable where the index and middle fingers are both perpendicular to the strings, the thumb's the 45-degree angle, everything looks really good here. And then they put their pinky on and everything changes because the pinky moves their hand. That's no good. If you're able to hold that shape and place your pinky on while still getting a good perpendicular angle, then that's totally fine. And for most people, it's very doable. At first, when you're working on it, it's going to feel really bizarre. This lesson is all about feeling a little uncomfortable to get a more comfortable tone, because by the end of this lesson, you're going to know exactly what to do to play with this 3-finger style and be able to use it in a lot of different songs and styles, including the examples we'll have linked below. But right now, it might be a little bit uncomfortable, and that's okay. So we've got our thumb here on the C string, our index finger here on the E string, and our middle finger here on the A string. Now, a couple notes. One is, if it feels awkward for your hand here, that's normal. In fact, I think of a triangle when I play this. And the reason I think of a triangle, bring the camera out a little bit, is because my arm makes a little bit of a triangle. If you look down here, and then you look over here, and then you look at my wrist, you can see that there's a little bit of a triangulation of my hand to my ukulele. That's very normal with it. In fact, if your hand sits really flush and flat, usually it's not going to get a really good angle. Having that little bit of an out triangle really helps. Now, I'm 6'3" and can palm a basketball, so my wingspan's pretty big, which also means my triangle is pretty big. So if you're smaller than I am, it's normal for your triangle to be a bit smaller, and that's okay. It's just finding what fits for you. Ultimately, the reason why we're talking about all these little techniques is because we're trying to get the best possible tone. And if you do techniques a little bit different and you still get a great tone, well, then you're doing the techniques correct. Because remember, correct tone is a result of correct technique, right? Not necessarily the other way around. It's okay to develop your tone based on the technique that you're using and vice versa. So with this now, we've got these fingers here. Let's go ahead and practice working on just playing the strings individually. We're going to take our thumb, pluck the C string open, index, pluck the E string open, and then middle finger, pluck the A string open. Let's try that again. So C string, E string, and finally the A string. I'm going to super zoom in here again, one more time. Thumb, index, middle. You'll notice that when I'm finger picking, I'll keep my fingers on the strings before I start playing, and then after they've struck the string, I don't return them to the string until I'm about to play them. But by keeping all of the fingers really tight together, it's not something like this, where it's a big guessing game. That's why I like the fingers to pull underneath and over each other, meaning the thumb pulls over these 2 fingers, while the index and middle pull behind the thumb. Let's go ahead and take a look at exercise number 1 now, which we've played the first half of. It's going to start by playing the C string, then the E string, then the A string, and then it plays the G string. Well, what do we do for that G string? Well, this is where the thumb is going to move up to our G string, and it's going to strike that string. Now, this is difficult because we don't want to move our whole hand. We just want to move the thumb. So if this is our default position, thumb on the C, index on the E, middle on the A, the thumb is simply going to move up so that it can hit that G string. And let's go ahead and try this now. Let's play the G string with the thumb, and then the E with the index, and the A with the middle. So let's go ahead and try this now as an exercise. We're going to play the C with the thumb, E with the index, A with the middle, and then thumb moves up on the G, and then E still on the index finger, and the A still with the middle finger. These two fingers do not move, just the thumb alternates between the C and G strings, respectively. So let's go and try doing this a few times in a row. It's essentially 6 different things. So I'm going to kind of count us in and go ahead and play along with me. If you get lost, it's okay. Just try to follow along and get comfortable with the concept of the finger alternating. It should be something like this. 3, 4, 5, 6. C, E, A, G, E, A. C, E, A, G, E, A. One more time. Very good. Notice how I keep my hand pretty tight with this. I try to not do a lot of, octopus movement of like tentacles coming out here. We're going to try to keep everything super narrow as we go through. Let's go and take a look at exercise number 2.